You know, there are moments in life when truth walks right into your chest without knocking, sits down in the quietest part of your soul, and asks you a question you don't feel ready to answer. That's what happened to me one night. No grand event, no dramatic music, no lightning in the sky, just me, a dim room, a tired heart, and a silence so still I could hear my own thoughts echoing. I was scrolling through videos the way people flip through channels when they're not looking for anything in particular, just trying to distract themselves from the things they're not brave enough to think about. And then I stumbled on something about Prophet Noah, Nuh, as Muslims call him. And something in me paused. It wasn't the title, it wasn't the thumbnail, it was something else, something I can only describe as a tug on the inside, like a whisper saying, sit up, pay attention, this one is going to change something. And I didn't know why, not then. I thought I already knew the story. A giant flood, a giant boat, animals marching 2 by 2, people ignoring a warning until it was too late. I heard that version my whole life. But life has this way of humbling you. It has this way of making you realize that sometimes the stories you think you've understood are the ones you barely scratched the surface of. So I leaned in, I stayed in that silence, and a question rose in me like a slow sunrise. What does Islam really say about Noah? Now, I'm not Muslim. I don't claim to be. But I've reached a point in life where I know wisdom doesn't check your background before it speaks to you. Truth doesn't care about labels. It cares about hearts, open ones, tired ones, searching ones. And that night, mine was all three. So I started reading, listening, watching, and what I found it didn't just shift my understanding, it cracked something open inside me. Because Islam doesn't present Noah as a distant figure from ancient times. It doesn't paint him as a character in a children's book. It presents him as a man who carried a weight almost too heavy for the human heart to bear. Islam says he preached to his people for 950 years. I want you to imagine that. Not a decade, not a lifetime, almost a millennium. 1,000 years of telling people the truth. 1,000 years of warning them out of love. 1,000 years of hoping they'd wake up before their choices drowned them. I sat with that number, and I swear my heart trembled, because I can barely hold on to patience for one difficult conversation, let alone 1,000 years of rejection. But Noah did. He showed up through mockery, through laughter, through stubbornness that could break a lesser man. He showed up when people rolled their eyes, when they walked away, when they dismissed him as if his entire mission was a joke. I don't know about you, but I know what rejection feels like. I know the sting of being unheard. I know the ache of pouring your heart out only to have it bounce off the walls like it never mattered. And that's just a slice, a moment, a season. But Noah lived that for centuries. And what hit me hardest was realizing that he didn't do it for applause. He didn't do it for validation. He didn't do it because he wanted to be remembered. He did it because he trusted God, because he believed that even if people didn't listen, he still had to speak. Even if nobody followed him onto that ark, he still had to build it. And then came the detail, simple, quiet, but powerful, that caught in my throat like a lump of truth. Islam says the rain didn't begin with thunder. It began softly, quietly, almost unnoticed, just like most warnings in our lives. We don't recognize danger until the water is at our ankles. We don't recognize truth until the flood is on the horizon. And picturing Noah standing there, heart heavy, hands worn, building something no one believed in, that image wouldn't let me go. I started thinking about my own life, my storms, my mistakes, the warnings I ignored because I thought I knew better. And I asked myself questions I wasn't ready for. How many times has truth tried to reach me, but I treated it like background noise? How many times did life give me signs, but I brushed them off because they didn't fit my plans? How many storms did I walk into with pride as my guide? And I realized something painful but honest. I've drowned in floods I built with my own hands. We all build something in this life. Some of us build careers. Some build families. Some build walls around our hearts so high we forget what's behind them. But the real question is, are we building something that can survive a storm or something that collapses the moment the winds pick up? Noah's ark wasn't just wood and nails. It was obedience. It was surrender. It was trust. And trust, that's a language I'm still learning. I've trusted people who weren't meant to carry my heart. trusted dreams that weren't meant to last, trusted illusions I mistook for purpose. But trusting God, trusting a higher plan, trusting the idea that maybe I don't see the whole picture, that's always been harder, maybe too hard. But what Islam teaches through Noah is that sometimes the thing that saves you is not the thing you understand, but the thing you obey. Sometimes the lifeline doesn't look like a lifeline. Sometimes the salvation looks like a task that makes no sense. And sometimes the ark is being built long before the rain arrives. The more I learned, the more everything around me started connecting. We live in a world where everyone hears but no one listens. A world where guidance is seen as restriction, where warnings feel like interruptions, where humility feels outdated. And yet, we are still on that same shore, still watching the clouds form, still deciding whether to build an ark of character, faith, humility, or pretend we don't see the storm coming. I thought of a man I know, someone who ignored every sign that his marriage was falling apart, every quiet plea, every moment of distance. He told himself things would fix themselves. They didn't. He waited until the flood was at his door. And then there was another man, someone who felt a tug in his chest to change, to reconnect with God, to stop living life on autopilot. He ignored it, brushed it aside, until one night life knocked him to his knees. That night, he realized something I think many of us eventually learn. Some storms don't come to destroy you. They come to wash you clean. And that line, that understanding, that realization, it echoed inside me like a truth I had always known but never acknowledged. Because Islam doesn't tell the story of Noah to scare you, it tells it to wake you, to show you that the biggest flood in your life might not be water. It might be pride, it might be ego, it might be stubbornness. And that kind of flood can drown you quietly. No thunder, no lightning, just a slow rising of consequences. And that's when it hit me. You don't need a storm to drown. Sometimes all it takes is refusing to listen. As I sat with all of this, I felt something soften in me, something unclenched, something open. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect a story I thought I already knew to turn into a mirror. I didn't expect it to speak to the tired, aging, searching parts of me, but it did. And slowly, gently, without force, it felt like God was teaching me something through a story older than memory, something about patience, something about humility, something about surrender. I found myself breathing differently, thinking differently, reflecting on the places in my life where I've resisted the very guidance that could have saved me, reflecting on how many times I chose my own plan over wisdom, reflecting on how often I built ships out of fear instead of faith. And I realized something simple but profound. The ark we all need to build isn't wood. It's character, integrity, obedience, grace, humility, a willingness to listen even when listening is hard. And sitting there in that dim room again, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long while, peace. Not a loud peace, not a dramatic one, but a quiet, steady, grounding peace. The kind that feels like a door being opened inside your soul. The kind that whispers, there's more for you, keep going. I'm not saying I'm changing religions. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm not pretending to be a scholar or a preacher. I'm just a man who stumbled on a story he thought he knew and ended up finding a truth he desperately needed, a truth about trust, about storms, about guidance, about the mercy hidden inside warnings, about the way God reaches us through stories older than we can imagine. And if there's one thing I've learned from this, one thing I'll carry with me through every season, every storm, every quiet night where the world feels heavy, it's this: build your ark before the rain comes, not out of fear, but out of faith. Not because life is full of storms, but because God is full of mercy. And peace, real peace, doesn't come from avoiding the storm. It comes from trusting the one who can carry you through it.